I'm so pumped to be here. This is such an amazing event, and I'm really honored to kick off one of our first panels of the day. Some of you, I should introduce myself, some of you may have seen me on A&E's Epic Inc. My name is Josh Bodwell, I'm a tattoo artist, but what you have not seen me in is my failed attempt at a music career before my tattoo career. So I know no one ever saw me in that. But so as a guitar player, this guest is such an honor to talk to. I was influenced at an early age by all the 80s rockers, the metal, the hair bands. That's what made me want to play guitar and drove me to a, unfortunately, not a professional career. Got into tattooing later on, but still, guitar playing and heavy metal music is such a special place in my heart. So I am so excited to have a chat with the legendary Eddie Ojeda. Come on up, buddy. Twisted Fucking Sister. All right. Man, what an honor. Thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
I got Mike. All right, cool.
It's working.
All right. So if you guys can indulge me, one of the things that I was just saying is guitar players like Eddie were such a big influence to me, and I'm always curious, what are my influences? What drove you into music? What drove you towards guitar playing?
I know it sounds cliche, but the Beatles, I mean, that was the kind of going thing of pretty much anybody that's around my age. But, later on, of course, Hendrix, Clapton, Jeff Beck, and Jimmy Page were like kind of the gods for me, growing up, and kind of my influences, so I kind of stick to that Clapton kind of way of playing. I'm more of a slow hand guy. I'm not a speed guy, so. Yeah, and honestly, that was, I know I don't want to talk too much about myself, but that was what I was drawn to your guitar playing, is just that solid, just keeping the crunch, and that was like, to me, just what stood out about your guitar sound. And was it guitar first? Was other music instruments? Yeah, it was guitar first, pretty much, because my dad I thought he played guitar, but he was sing in the neighborhood, like at Christmas parties, and I thought, so, we had like a toy guitar, and I always kind of was attracted to the guitar. And, as far as, I always liked that Leslie West kind of style of playing where the guitar sounds more like a saxophone, you know what I mean? Like a very use melodies instead of using, I mean, I like all kinds of players. I mean, I love to see guys play like the shredding stuff, but, I'm more, I'm into kind of the old style, more bluesy.
Yeah. What was your beginnings in guitar? Was it immediately getting with friends in the neighborhood and starting bands at a young age? Was it sort of a solitary thing?
Yeah, it was kind of getting together with I forgot the name of the first band I was in. The Trade Winds.
Trade Winds. All right.
Jeez.
We should be looking forward to those Deep Cut EP coming out soon.
And I was pretty bad. Well, actually, we had a guy that played saxophone that was pretty good. But the drummer, it was a failed attempt. But it's okay when you're 14.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Of course. Yeah. It sounds amazing when you're 14 and you're playing in your basement. Yeah. I'm pretty sure personally there's like some cassette tapes of my 14-year-old's awesome band that just is
right.
Totally embarrassing. So what was the path then through afterwards? Was there music school in your life? Was there?
I actually went to college. I was a music major, and I took classical lessons because you had to audition, and so I took classical guitar lessons for a while. I learned by ear, but I wanted to get formal just to know,
expand,
understand it, like understand theory and everything, which definitely helped me, and from that. But I was already playing in bands. I was like playing in bars. I mean, at that time you could be 18. In New York it was 18, so people could drink at 18, or right. Go into bars. In fact, all the guys from Jersey used to come into New York because
the drinking age was lower.
21.
Yeah.
So
So you were already out there.
I was like 16, 17. I was playing in bars and nobody cared, back then.
Yeah,
So.
it was just like, oh, another musician, whatever. There's a dime a dozen.
Yeah, we played with this guy named Joey. No, not Joey. I forgot his last name. He was in a band called the Cufflinks, one of those oldies, like 50s bands, and that was an experience because this guy, we could just play the same 4 chords, and he would do like 80 songs with the same four chords.
Yeah.
So it was a good guy. It was a good experience.
So you were actively doing the band thing, in some aspect, but then also trying to fulfill some more musical knowledge, going to school.
Exactly.
And did you end up finishing that, or did the Twisted Sister in the path towards that?
What happened was I didn't finish college because I got into Twisted Sister. I went to high school with JJ, and we were friends, and we were always like, we were in different bands, and then he asked me to join Twisted Sister, and
was it a no-brainer? Were you like, yes, I want to? These are the guys I want to play with.
At the time, like disco was big, and I said we could make money playing rock and roll, And he said like, yeah, I know these places in the suburbs. We lived in Manhattan at the time, so I said, oh, there's like
there's a scene. There's
people out there that like you can play rock.
Right.
You can play all the songs that we like playing. So instead of playing that dance shit.
Yeah, and it's crazy to think that was the scene there. Like you said, disco was king, and rock and roll.
Nothing against dance music, but people like that. But it was just that's all there was. It was
right.
As far as in Manhattan, it was. But when you went to the suburbs, it was rock and roll was alive and well.
So for you, it was that was definitely like joining in with Twisted Sister. Was for you just like a no-brainer. These people you wanted to play with. There was music you wanted to play.
Yep.
The scene was there in the suburbs. You said
it was great.
So.
And we this thing is a little, but little by little we started. We found different people. Because at first it was just me, JJ, and Kenny Neal was the bass player at the time, and we were singing lead, and it was like a little difficult. We said, well, let's get a singer, and our agent at the time, D was in a band that he hated, and at the time. Okay.
We're gonna swap out this chord for you real quick. Sorry, guys. First panel of the day, little technical difficulties.
Could be the chord. No, that's.
All right, cool.
But anyway, D, he was in a band that he hated called Peacock. I could just imagine the name. Just
alone, that's a nightmare. Have to show up and be like, "What band are you in?" Peacock. Sorry.
Yeah, and he's just take out the P. But there was another the D story. Like there was a band that wouldn't tell him the name because they thought it was so good, and they finally told him the name, and the band was called This. Like it's supposed to be like, this is great. This is awesome. What about this sucks?
You're just opening up yourself to just get
Yeah.
You just open yourself for ridicule the whole time.
Yeah.
Hey, let me swap at you. I'm gonna. There you go. There we go.
Okay.
So what I really wanted to find out too is, so we established there was a scene in the suburbs. Rock and roll was alive out there. Was it just? Do you feel like there was a hill to climb for Twisted Sister, or did you feel like you were just right out the gate that people were just falling in love with it? Like, where was there still a struggle, even though?
It definitely was a struggle. I mean, once we got D in the band and we didn't have to worry about singing, and at the time he really did Robert Plant very well. Like we did all Zeppelin, like Zeppelin 1 was, we did the whole album. So we were kind of a Zeppelin band, which was weird, for a little while. And then, people always loved Zeppelin 1, So, and gradually I said, like, my whole thing was, let's just play, 4 or 5 nights a week so we can, and, work towards doing originals and get signed.
So
that was the
slowly putting the originals into the set.
And everybody had the same mindset. This was, playing the bars and stuff was just a way to pay the bills until we got signed. So, and eventually, it was 10 years before we got signed, but it was,
So it was a
definitely
long road.
difficult.
Yeah. And
yeah.
because I think that sometimes it's easy to have like the misconstrued notion that that these bands just form and
most overnight successes are like 10 years.
That's the overnight. It's a very long night, of at least decade.
I mean, that's pretty average. If even I've talked to so many people that even Queen. You would think Queen would never have a hard time, but they had a hard time too. In the beginning.
When it came to actually getting that record deal. Was it something that was it out of the blue for you guys, or was it something that I know 10 years of work, but I mean, was it like minute the label comes by with the contract ready to sign, or was it for you guys? Were you trying to find the best fit for you guys?
At the point, it got to a point where we just people would come down and say they're going to sign the band, and it never happened.
Right, a lot of
so
hurry up and wait, and a lot of showcases for nobody, and
so and we got to the point where we just said, oh, he's lying. It's not gonna. But we just kept chugging away, and we actually got signed in England. Phil Carson, who he signed AC/DC, ABBA, Foreigner, Yes, a few successful bands.
Just a couple of bands you've heard of, yeah, maybe.
He toured with Led Zeppelin, and so it was one of those things that. Atlantic Records had turned us down in the States. So, but he was the president of Atlantic Records in England.
Right.
So, he called America and said, "I'm signing this band."
And they're like, "Wait, we already talked to them. We're not interested."
Yeah, we did a show called because our first deal was with an English company called Secret Records. And that was a good name for the record company because it was a big secret.
Nobody saw it. Yeah, it's like that excitement of we finally got a deal and no one knows.
Secret Records.
It's
yeah.
so secret.
It's a secret. But then that led to us playing this show called. It was a huge show in England, and 10 million people watched the show. So, and Lemmy from Motorhead. That was Lemmy took us in right away. We opened for Motorhead, and we were terrified, because their fans are hardcore,
Yeah. Are they going to eat us up alive, or
and and we wore makeup at the time, and we were but Lemmy came out and introduced us, and it was it really helped. And then we played this show called The Tube. That was the name of the show, and from that we got signed. Phil Carson happened to be at the show with Mick Jones from Foreigner. And he said, because Mick Jones had a place in New York. He lived in New York and England. So he was like, this band, every time I'm in the car, they're playing at some place called Speaks. And I'm constantly hearing that they're playing, so I want to see them. So then, Phil stayed, and he says, I'm going to sign this band. And Lemmy and Rob Robinson was at the time he played with, before that he was in Lizzie for a while. And then, so him and Lemmy came up and jammed with us.
So that that moment for you guys was that just changed everything. Getting that exposure, getting that affirmation that the fans were with you, and then getting signed.
Yeah, it was actually England, and we played in England a lot. I mean, at one point, people thought we were an English band. I remember going to Texas and meeting somebody, and they said, "Aren't you English? You sound like you're from New York."
I could have sworn.
I said I speak English, but I'm far from being English.
Yeah, what part of England are you from? I can't get the dialect. I'm not really sure.
I'm from what do they call it? New England.
Yeah, New England.
Somebody actually thought that was another country.
Yeah. So the other thing that it's got to be, I mean, it can't be lost on you guys. You put so much work into getting that deal, getting that record, and then, if I can flash forward a few years, to have these monster rock anthems that that just, they just scream the time period, and did you see that happening? Did you know that it was happening, or was it sort of was it a wave that the popularity that you weren't really catching up till after the fact? So,
it just sort of happened. I mean, when we did the Stay Hungry album, I kind of knew there was something going on, you know.
You could sense it. You could sense the change.
Can't Stop Rock and Roll and Under the Blade were, they did okay, but Stay Hungry was the album that really went, big. And the anthems in there, like I Want to Rock and We're Not Going to Take It. I mean, We're Not Going to Take It's paid a lot of bills, so I don't complain.
You're never going to complain about that.
Just on a ball game or something, all of a sudden it comes on. I think I told you that. I'm sitting at a ball game and like the guy next to me is rocking out to the song, and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to say anything.
just gonna casually sit here.
It's pretty awesome to sit there, watching the Mets and in the stadium, and all of a sudden one of your songs come on. It's a pretty great feeling.
Yeah, because it truly is an iconic anthem, and that's what I say. Like when you're sitting in the studio writing it, you don't think, or maybe you sit there and be like, I did it. I wrote the song. This is it. This is gonna be the one at the Mets game in 2018. I know.
Well, it's funny because I always said, when they start playing the song in a parade, then you got a hit song. And sure enough, in the Thanksgiving Day parade, they had somebody who was doing We're Not Going to Take It. The bad thing was, this was like 2 years ago, they were like all these people with walkers. They did this whole dance thing, and I was like, okay.
They were like, oh, are they
I'll
sending
take
me?
that,
Are they sending me a message here? What is this?
Yeah, it was like. It's like they went to an old folks home and found all these people. I mean, they were like dancers that had wigs on and stuff.
Right.
It was pretty funny. But I've also seen it in movies where I've seen like college bands. We've put it on our website a few times. Like a lot of colleges use it. It's become like one of those songs that teams use.
Right. Well, it's so iconic. There's the melody. You don't need the lyrics. Just the melody alone, and it will get people singing along. So that's what I was getting at, is like when you wrote that, put that song down, and did you know? Do you have a sense that like damn, that's a good song, or was it like a track that just like any other track on the song on the album?
Yeah, at the time that's kind of what it. I mean, I knew that was a single.
Yeah.
Because it was the way the whole anthem thing to it, but. Yeah, it just, you never know what's going to happen with something. If that's going to be the one that does it for you. And luckily it did.
Yeah. And I was going to say, I think that's, I don't know if it's even a question we have an answer for, but just what maybe you can attribute the staying power of Twisted Sister in your music. And also, to piggyback that, after the sort of long hiatus separation of the band and then coming back together, do you think that also attributes to now the staying power of you guys, being able to push it even further into the future and not just being one of those, I think I remember that band, but no, they're still, Yeah,
there's still like the song says the fire still burns,
Yeah.
So there's still something there. I mean, even we stopped touring in 2016.
Right.
But for 14 years we had a really good comeback, and we were headlining all these huge festivals in Europe. So it's been great. I mean, it was nice to come back like that.
Yeah, and see those audiences, and and imagine even seeing a wider range of age groups. It's not just like, here's the same fans from back then. Just see the new fans, a whole new generation.
It's a whole new generation. It's like and headlining these festivals was. It was a good reason to get back together. Actually, what happened was, 9/11, and we did a benefit with Ace Frehley, and it's funny because Overkill and Anthrax were on the bill too. I mean, we headlined the show, but Anthrax and Overkill, and it was a 9/11 thing for the policemen and firemen, a benefit we did and it was it was a great success, and that sort of started the whole thing and going again.
Yeah, was it for you guys just having that conversation of like, all things aside, we need to do this, and then realizing that you can still get in a room together and you can still get out there and have some fun?
Yeah, that, and everybody was broke. That's a good reason.
It's like
that'll get a band together real quick.
But you go in the ATM machine and it just says, I think it's time to put the band back together.
It just gives you the finger,
But you enjoyed that going back out on tour though. I mean, was that just
it was
the live performance?
It was great, especially like headlining. Because we in the '80s we didn't headline. We were like third or fourth on the bill. Back then it was like Iron Maiden or Whitesnake was headlining, and but we got closer and closer to the headlining thing. But and then we broke up for 10 years.
Right.
But you know, the lack of funds put us back together.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah. Well, unfortunately that's a story for a lot. But I know that it must have still been a very validating and feeling to come back and see those headlining tours and see the people showing up.
It was great. You know, I mean, I kind of knew it was going to happen because we had done a good thing, and as far as and then to come back like that was really worth it. It wasn't like playing like bars and stuff that we had to, so it was really great. I mean,
You can't complain.
The last 14 years was just awesome.
Yeah.
We were bigger than ever,
Yeah, and I think some of it might have also had to do with, it all kind of ties into the culture of, your rock anthems becoming staples of, the sporting events and movies and television and people, getting back to their roots in 80s rock and it having a resurgence for, even if it's on one hand nostalgia and on the other hand just, people are hungry for that kind of raw live rock and roll music that they might not get.
Yeah, definitely. It's there's certain songs that'll always be around,
right.
And rock anthems, especially stuff in the '80s. There were so many anthem rock songs that are still strong today, and the whole retro thing came back so big. I mean, so many movies and TV commercials use a lot of stuff from the '80s.
Yeah. Well, I did want to ask that in the breakup separation period, were you also working through doing any like studio session stuff? Like, do you tend to get outside of the box a little bit, or? Yeah,
I did some stuff, but not.
There's no smooth jazz album in that we don't know about.
I had a band called Scarecrow. It was really good. I mean, we did one album, but it just didn't happen, and we kind of split up. But it was a good effort, you know. But I kept playing with different people. I was just getting gigs here and there. I actually played with a wedding band for a while, which was, believe it or not, it was a good gig. We got paid very well.
Yeah, don't knock some of those gigs like that, because there's good money to be made if you.
Yeah, I didn't mind it. I mean, because we had to play all this different stuff, so I learned a lot of things that I never would have. Like Frank Sinatra songs I was playing. So I learned a lot of things that I would never, like jazz chords and things that I would never have learned if I didn't have to. So it was good as a musician.
Right.
A good experience, and everybody in the band was really good.
Really talented people to play with. Yeah.
So it was enjoyable. We had a lot of fun, but and it did. They were a big band. Yeah, and for that. So I could say I covered every
possible genre within that.
Like between
that realm.
bars, and stadiums, and weddings, I've done it all.
Done it all.
That's the one thing that I had not done, but I added that to the list.
You got to put that feather in your cap and really cover all grounds.
Yeah, for 3 years, but it was a really good experience. They're not together anymore, but it was they were like one of the big wedding bands. It's amazing. They had a road crew.
There's a scene. That's
it was a whole scene.
I don't think people understand that there is like a legit wedding band scene out there. And
some of these bands make a lot.
You won't know
really
their name,
money.
but more successful than a lot of the up and comers.
Especially the ones that have like horn section.
Oh
and stuff.
yeah.
It's
no joke.
There's some.
But I found that fascinating because again, you were saying as a guitar player where your influences lie, but that you also are open to learning a lot more even later on. You didn't just go like, well, this is how I play guitar and that's all I do, but that you still have a passion for it. And
it was to me it was like you never stop. I don't think you ever stop learning, and just in life in general. I think there's always room for improvement. So no matter. You never know it all,
Yeah, we say that in the tattoo industry as well. That always a student. Never a master, always a student. Just always soaking in and new knowledge. And
exactly.
And as a guitar player, I'm sure it can be probably stifling if you're maybe stuck just doing the same thing for a long time.
Yeah.
Just playing the same songs. So
it's good to. experience different styles of music, you know. And I mean, my record collection is like, goes from the Sex Pistols to Ray Charles, you know, to Frank Sinatra. I mean, I like all kinds of music. I like a lot of classical music, you know. And I mean, my main thing is definitely rock and roll, but as far as what I like to play, but you know.
But as far as a fan and listening, just opening
yeah,
up
I'm
the
very
horizons.
open-minded with
Yeah.
when it comes to music. You know, I'm not like stuck on. Well, I definitely like heavy stuff, but
Oh, of course,
you know.
absolutely. But I also wanted to know if you had any current projects or any plans for any kind of current projects right now.
Well, I have some tracks that I want to do a second solo album. But you know, I'm just kind of waiting. I'm moving to Nashville, so I'm going to try and hook up with some people down there.
And Nashville's really become a new like heavy rock scene, and so many rock producers are going to Nashville now. It's
A lot of people.
It's really. I mean, it's always been Music City, but we've always associated it with country.
Yeah.
And now it's there's a huge rock and roll scene.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you know, you walk around with a guitar in Nashville, people are just, they're cool about it. You know, like, oh, another guitar player. But and you know, there's guitars everywhere. So everywhere you go to the airport, you see a Les Paul hanging. You know, so it's just it's a great place. A lot of people are going there, and
You feel that's inspiring to you too, if you're going to get down there and writing and surrounding yourself with maybe some other really talented people that you wouldn't maybe have the opportunity to work with.
Exactly, because it's a lot easier to get together in a place like Nashville. You know, in New York, people just don't do that. You know, not as much. It's more difficult. You know.
Yeah, I've always felt like New York is like the business side of the music business.
It is.
You know,
yeah.
it's not so much the talent pool and the camaraderie and the writing and everything else. It's more just there's the head office of course and the business suits of it.
It's there, but you gotta dig it out.
Dig it out. Get under the surface.
It's not
a little
easy,
bit.
but like you said, a lot of the offices are there. The big record companies, but you know, it's just people don't get together as much as they do in a place like Los Angeles or
Nashville.
Nashville. You know, it's just easier to get around. I don't know, maybe because they're more car places where you need a car, so it's a lot easier, and people don't have to get on the subway.
But just the collection of talent that is in Nashville right now. I mean, from our times and traveling with different conventions and tattoo conventions, Nashville. I mean, the person playing at the hotel bar would be the most talented person in any other town in America, but they're just trying to make do.
Yeah, it happens.
You know?
I mean, I've seen some amazing people, but at least they're out there doing what they want to do, and they're having fun, and that's the whole attitude. You have to I mean, making it to a certain level there's a lot of luck involved. It's not. It's really rare. Very few people get to make it. And sometimes, it's good to remember that, because in the entertainment business it's like feast or famine. It could really. That's why there's so many tragedies, because it's really affects people. Those ups and downs.
Right. The swings of it and riding that. And what do you attribute for you that sort of helped you go ride that out and get to the point where you got to see the resurgence again when you went out and toured? Like, what kind of got you through? What was your motivation through that?
I guess having children. You gotta sort of do it for them,
right?
And that was the one good thing that because when I was always on tour, it was hard to have a family,
right?
But that's the best thing that came out of it. Even though it was a rough time financially, it was.
But you got to spend that time.
Yeah, I got to see them grow up.
Yeah,
so it was
and that's priceless in a way that
exactly.
That you otherwise being on the road. I mean, that's got to be probably the. People think it's glamorous all the time.
Exactly.
But there's a lot of, and again, I had the most minimal of a music career, but I did get to do some tours, and people are like, oh, tour buses sound rad, and it's like, no, they're smelly, disgusting submarines that you can't get off of, and you're stuck on
a bus with 13 men.
Yeah, it's not a good time at all.
They don't bathe often. Yeah. It's like it gets a little funky.
Yeah.
But people think this. I remember we used to be like three guys we used to stay at these cheap motels, three of us in one room. We would take turns you're sleeping on the cot.
Yeah,
You know?
not this glamorous.
And every band
style.
has that story. I mean, you know, the Police were like, they were actually their own crew when Roxanne was a big hit.
Oh yeah, yeah.
They played at a place called My Father's Place, and they were roadieing themselves.
Roadieing themselves, yeah. At a height of early height of success.
And Roxanne was a huge hit at the time, and they were still.
Yeah.
And you know what happened with them. So, and that's a lot. That's a lot of bands went through that. BTO was the same thing.
Yeah. When you guys first started touring the record, you know, that was to be your big hits. Did you actually start it in a van and end it in a tour bus? Like was there a change?
No, by that time, Stay Hungry. We got the Iron Maiden tour. We the World Slavery Tour. I think it was 84, 85, and we toured with Maiden, and it was great.
That was like the first.
Stay Hungry.
Yeah, big.
Was just took off, you know. So, you know, usually when you're the opening band, the place is half empty, but everybody was there at 8 o'clock to see us too, and Maiden loved it because you know it would be so. Dee would get the audience so fired up.
They're ready to go. Yeah.
And most bands don't like that, you know. But Maiden was really cool about it. They didn't limit us with anything,
Yeah.
you know. And they said, "Yeah, fire them up." And they wanted us to keep touring with them, and we had to kind of do different things. But that was, you know, that's when both things happened at the same time. It was great being on a tour with them.
Yeah.
Because you know we were playing to like 20,000 people a night, you know.
Yeah, and when just prior, if you went a few years back, maybe get in a club with a couple hundred.
Yeah, small theaters.
Small theaters.
So
yeah.
In New York, we always did. You know, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia. We always did really the tri-state area. You know, we could do theaters. You know, venues that
Right.
were like actually theaters at the time. You know, once our originals. Like what happened was we kept adding more and more originals to the point where we were just doing original music.
Yeah, finally you got to that point where you're no longer the cover band, just and still able to get enough fan base to fill a club or
because it was like 80,
room.
20, then 30, 20, 30, and gradually it was 100%. It went to 100% originals, and everybody loved it. You know, but you know we kind of introduced them.
Yeah.
Little by little.
I can't even fathom the energy in the room because, I mean, if there's one thing to say about Twisted Sister is you guys are an amazing live band. The performance of it is on par with, you know, some of the best rockers out there. So to do that to 20,000 people makes sense. I can imagine the electricity in a small room if you guys just exploding on stage like that, just like to bring the house down like that.
It caught on quick because I think we had just thought like, well, even if the place is empty, we're still
we're gonna just do our thing.
We're gonna do it, and just think of it as a paid rehearsal, you know, and have the good attitude. But little by little, the people that more and more people started coming, and then the rooms we could play on a Tuesday night and get like 3,000 people in a room.
Yeah.
You know? So
that's great.
It was good, like wherever we put, once we became one of the biggest bands in the tri-state area. But we couldn't get signed.
Still couldn't get signed until you went to England, of course.
Yeah, until we went to England. So,
well, I'm going to open up the floor. I just feel like I've just had the most amazing time talking to you because it's like just being able to pick your brain and hear from your perspective is just amazing. So my friend Bill over here is at the mic, and if anybody wants to come up to the mic and ask Eddie a question.
Chris.
Chris 51, ladies and gentlemen. Headbanger Con.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
Promoter, owner.
Hey, thanks for coming out, everybody. I really appreciate the support. So does Eddie up there.
Yep.
Okay, I have a question. Kids, earmuffs. Okay, hey, earmuffs, baby. Okay, thank you.
Uh-oh.
We Are Twisted Fucking Sister.
Yeah.
My favorite documentary of all time. Okay.
Thank you.
It's incredible. Have all of you guys seen that documentary? That changed my perspective on touring and everything. I had no idea. I was a huge Twisted Sister fan since I was a little kid, and I had no idea you guys went through that struggle. I loved it. So my question is, I'm done fanboying out now. My question is, whose idea was that movie? Did you guys get together? Were you approached about it?
Yeah, we were approached. This guy named Andy Horn. He had saw us, and it took him 10 years to do that movie. He's the director. And he found all the footage and interviewed us all at different times, and it was his idea to do it. You know, he spent 10 years getting all the footage and stuff. Some of the stuff I thought, you know, I couldn't believe how hard we worked. I said, man, we should have made more money back then, you know. But you know, it got to the point where we were doing very well. But it was, man, people thought it was not easy. Like working 5 nights a week, traveling like, you know, most of these gigs were like 80 to 100 miles, you know, a night. You know, maybe 150 miles back and forth. So it was,
awesome.
yeah, you know, you just get home at like 4 in the morning and then get up at 12 and do it all over again, you know, for 5-6 days a week.
What's it like then for you watching it and recalling like memories, or is it sometimes like watching a weird home movie that, you know, seeing yourself and seeing the things you went through and seeing what you guys had done, and like what's it like, that perspective from you watching that?
Well, it's kind of like, it blew me away too. I'm like, because when you're doing that, you don't realize how hard it was. And I go back and I go like, wow, how did we do that? That's insane, you know?
How do we survive?
How do we keep that up, you know? And it just happened, you know? It's just, everybody just had that energy. And, you know, luckily it paid off, but it wasn't easy. But, you know, it was a lot of fun when you're like, you're full of piss and vinegar when you're in your 20s, you know? So it's like, you don't care as long as you're, and it was, you know, constantly getting bigger and bigger. So it was, you know,
The trajectory
it was
that was
thrilling.
there. Yeah,
It wasn't
thrilling,
like, you know, it wasn't like we were playing, like every time there was more and more people were coming, and, you know, then it became like a whole thing whenever we played. So it was nice to go to work, you know, because people were there. So it was good.
Yeah, that's and again, I think that you know, there's just something about Twisted Sister's music that just it had that magic, and it just, you know, it was a soundtrack of that era, and you know, and it makes it's no wonder that it was just a solid trajectory like that during that time period, because it was on fire. It was electric at the time.
Yeah, the documentary, I mean, even if you don't care for the band, it's still it's very interesting to watch, because every band's been through that, most of them. I mean, very few bands have been lucky enough to just get signed, you know.
Yeah, that success story
right
of
away,
initial.
Most bands have been through hell and back, you know, to make it. And it's just a good band story, because it's just what most people go through.
Yeah, and it can be related to anyone that's ever tried to be in a band and tried to get out there. And yeah, and I can, you know, again, I can tell you from my perspective, it's a lot of that hard, you know, putting in ridiculous 60-hour weeks, you know, for little to no pay. I always call my short-lived music career the semi-professional, because I got to do stuff and put music out, but I never got paid. So never got to that level. But,
yeah.
And it's hard, like you said. It's not something that happens to everybody. And you know, so I'm so, you know, happy to hear that you know, that you can look back and have that positive, because I'm sure there's a lot of guys that look back and go, you know, they're either have some terrible memories or you know, anger about things, and the fact that you can look back and be like, yeah, we fucking did that. You know,
yeah, I
we
know some
made it.
people that are just kind of bitter,
Yeah,
because it just never happened, you know, because throughout the years, you know, I also know other guys that were in other bands, and it's just, and great bands too, but it just never happened for them, and you know, they're still out there struggling, but you know, I know some guys that are still playing the bars and doing the, you know, that whole scene, because that's how they make a living.
Yeah, doing what they do. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, some people are kind of bitter about it, but some, you got to just be, you know, accept what you have and be happy you're doing what you like doing.
Absolutely.
You know?
Do we have another question?
Well, thank you. Yeah, we got another question. You guys, if you have any questions, just come on, line up over here, okay? We got about 10 more minutes for questions, so ask them now. Thank you. Hey, Eddie, how you doing?
Okay, how are you?
Hey, I'm Junkman with KNAC in Los Angeles, and I grew up in the tri-state area, and Twisted Sister was the first band that I used to go see live at the 4.5 North in Brewster, New York, which was on that whole club scene. And
oh, so you got to see the Gong Show.
oh, I got to see the Gong Show and many other things that were there, and not only in the parking lot, but inside the club as well.
Right.
But Twisted Sister used to play there for $2 a night. That was what the admission charge, and they had nickel beer up until 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
And the drinking age was 18. So
Yep.
what I'm getting at the question is with the documentary, and I love the fact that they focus basically on those years as opposed to when the band
Exactly.
beyond that.
Yeah.
And the people that I were with were just wondering about the legitimacy of what it was like to go to a club when you were underage. And I said, it wasn't just legitimacy, it was just like a rite of passage. You had to have a phony ID when you were 15 to go be 18, as opposed to what people are doing now to be 21.
Right.
The question I got is, what was it like beyond, getting into these places, which, were old clubs that had been there, like especially like the 4 1/2 North or Speaks, that was a big place in Long Island, Rum Bottoms and all the rest of those places. What was it like in terms of, like, when you got to your little area? Did you have to get dressed in the car? Did they have like a dressing room for you? Did they have like a lunch meat platter, or was it like a pizza? Or as compared to, when you guys got real big, what was it like back then? Can you describe a little of that? And then I got another quick question or two after that.
Yeah, most of these bars didn't have dressing rooms and stuff. So, it would be like a basement or, wherever they had the soda machines or whatever, they pumped stuff. That's where we used to get ready, and this might be a little gross, but, sometimes we couldn't go to the bathroom because once the club scene got big, we couldn't go use the regular bathroom because so we used to be in cups and leave like all this.
Which, of course, you always had the drunk guys like, hey, all right, a nickel beer, right? And you would drink the wrong cup, right?
So we would leave because, some places had a bathroom that we could get to, but some places, there was we couldn't walk through the crowd to use the regular bathroom because it would be. So we would leave all these piss cups.
I guess my question would be, which one stood out amongst the other as like the worst backstage area that you had gone to in any of those places? Because none of those clubs are around anymore now. Now you can talk to them,
Yeah.
The guys that were in the mob that owned them probably aren't around anymore.
Yeah, it's like places like Speaks had a dressing room because they were used to having
So that would be the
national
plus.
acts, but there was a place called Emmett's in New Jersey, and it was sort of a dressing room or the basement, but there was a couple of places that were funky. As time went on, like, the club scene got so big that they had to make a dressing rooms for most of these bands because bands were getting dressed or they needed a place to hang, because they couldn't hang in the club, So it got better, but I remember most of the time getting ready in a lot of basements and stuff.
Teaches you humility, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, at the time
appreciate what you got now, right?
Yeah, at the time you didn't really think about it. You just said you just did what you had to do, but it did get better. A lot of the big clubs did have some place where we'd use their office, the guy's office, and then we'd walk through the crowd to get to the stage. But there was the lack of some bath. Sometimes when they didn't have a bathroom that we could use, could be a problem. But we resolved that.
The other part of my question kind of leads up to that was I got to know the late A.J. Perot, and he was a real big influence on my drumming. My question to you was, what was A.J. like on the road? To be able to, was he the guy in the band that would just kind of prank you guys all the time, or was he the guy that was the pranky? What was it like being on the road with A.J. in the early days?
Yeah, a little bit of both. I mean, AJ had a great sense of humor. He was always like really. He was really a funny guy. He always had the best attitude. And a lot of times he would go early. He would stay late. He would hang with the crew a lot more than the rest of us. And I used to hang out with AJ a lot because me and him were the only guys that really drank. And the other guys didn't drink at all, or do anything else. But so it was good. It was a good thing in a way. Now I look back and I go, it's kind of good that we didn't get stuck doing all the things that other bands did. And when you're working with people that like that, you tend to cut back too because you got to take things serious.
Yeah.
And so AJ was just I really miss him. He was a great guy. I mean, just funny, always very giving, kind guy. I always said he was the nicest guy in the band.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah.
Thanks for answering my question. I still got my SFM or SMF card from 1979.
Oh, man.
Still proudly have that, and I will always keep that. So
Yeah, we used to tell people if you get pulled over, show them the SMF card.
yeah,
People-
it worked with the cops. Yeah, they knew. You know, oh, you were at the after. Which they just did a reunion with the fore and after. I think about 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
They did it in Connecticut. They did a thing with a lot of the bands.
Yeah, that was in Norwalk. The Norwalk one in
No,
White.
the fore and after. There was one in Westport,
White-
but the one that I was talking about was in Brewster, New York.
Brewster,
which
yeah,
is
I know.
right-
I remember that one.
That was the one that they did a reunion.
Right
about
off
2 weeks ago.
687.
Yeah, right there.
Yeah, I
And now
remember.
it's no longer there. It burned down like a lot of those places did.
Yeah,
so.
there was one in White Plains too, the fore and aft, and we got a funny story about that.
That's what I'm looking for.
Because I'm friends with Ace Frehley, you know. So he he lived in the area at the time, so he came down to see us, and you know he was still partying pretty big back then. He pissed on the table, and then they told him to leave, and then on.
I didn't do nothing. I swear.
Yeah, no, nothing. Yeah, and then like on the way home, he hit like 4 cars, and so it just kept going.
Okay.
So,
Well, I think we have time for one more question.
Hey, man.
I don't know if Ace will remember that night.
If you ask
but
him about it, maybe not. Maybe not.
I never brought it up to him though.
Hey, thanks for doing this panel today. My husband and I watched the movie, and we're both musicians. He's from Queens, and so he's like, "Oh yeah, we played that club, and he also did the wedding scene, and people do not understand the wedding scene and the bar mitzvahs. People will spend like $100,000 on a bar mitzvah with magicians and jugglers and all that shit. Man.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. But you know, it was really cool watching you guys. That the fact that the movie focused on the club scene where you guys really honed your chops and where you became who you are, but
Definitely.
it also, you know, became a barrier because it's like the guys in the suits don't take that so seriously, and a lot of bands are being told, you know, don't play a lot of gigs, and bands are being told to play fewer gigs, or if you have smaller club gigs, don't put them on your website and that kind of stuff, and just you know, promote them on local social media. And so it's tough because bands want to play.
Yeah,
You want to play. You know, that's how you become who you are. So you talk about that kind of catch-22.
it is. Yeah, I think you're better off playing. I don't believe that. I think the better, you know, it's only like I said, it's a paid rehearsal. That's the way you have to look at it, and you know, stay positive, because you know, if you just if you go on the downside, which you know is very common. I mean, we all do that. You know, everybody lacks self-confidence sometimes. You know, even the most successful people. So, you know, I think the more you play, the better you are. That's
So just keep playing. Just keep playing as much as you can.
That's what I suggest. I don't think, you know, people should not play. It's never gonna. It's just good for you, you know, all around. And yeah, it's supposed to be the wedding scene too. There's people that spend $20,000 on flowers.
Yeah.
So paying $5,000 for the band wasn't too much.
No big deal. Well, Eddie, I want to thank you so much for chatting with us, for coming here to Portland.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
I want to thank you guys for coming out to hear the panel and coming out to Headbangers Con. Next panel coming up at 1 o'clock is going to be Shadows Falling with Brian Fair of Shadows Fall. So if you guys want to hang around for that, and enjoy the rest of your day, guys.
Have a good day.